Welcome to episode 78 of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. I'm your host and fellow student, Michelle Nelson, and together we'll learn the basics of home design and construction and demystify the building process so we can ask the right questions and build quality dream homes with or without a general contractor. If you've decided to hire a builder to be your general contractor, site supervisor, or even a consultant for the construction of your new house, there are a whole slew of questions that you'll want to ask him before you commit to working with him. There's a basic list of questions that you've probably heard before. These are questions that most people ask when vetting or investigating a builder. I bet you can guess some of these questions. Some of them are you licensed and insured? How many years have you been building? What kind of warranty do you offer? How do you handle change orders? How many homes do you typically have under construction at one time? How often should I expect updates from you? Have you ever owned a construction company under a different name? You want to ask this so that you can pull Better Business Bureau reports from all construction companies owned by that builder. And finally, you should ask him for a list of references. Remember to ask for the names of a few clients from the last couple of years and a few clients from 10 to 15 years ago. That way, you'll not only get to talk to people about the builder's current work habits, but you'll also get some idea about how his work holds up over time. So that wasn't an exhaustive list, but those are some of the more common questions that homeowners ask builders that they're considering for their projects. Now, you should definitely start with those questions, but realize that even the most mediocre builder will have acceptable answers for those questions. Since you're listening to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you don't just want a mediocre builder or a mediocre home. Most of us want a high-quality home that's comfortable, durable, and energy efficient. So there are a few other questions that I came across last week that go beyond what the average homeowner typically asks. This list of questions is from one of my favorite websites, energyvanguard.com. That blog post was called 10 Questions to Ask Your Prospective Builder. We'll cover 9 of those 10 questions today, and I'll have a link to the post in the show notes at byhyu.com, byhyu.com. In order to build a high-quality house, you'll need someone on your team who knows at least the basics of building science and HVAC design. That's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning design. And even if your potential builder doesn't know the answers to all of the following questions, he should at least be willing to point you to someone who has the answers. You want to assess not only the builder's personal knowledge of high-performance building, but also their personal opinion and philosophy about high-performance building. Does he think that building and constructing a house using building science is a no-brainer, or does he think it's nonsense? Here is a list of questions that you can ask prospective builders to find out how likely they are to construct a house that is well built and not just pretty. Question number 1. What's your view of airtight homes? Builders can be very passionate about the term airtight. Some builders believe strongly in building a tight house, and some don't. It's probably best to stay away from builders who don't believe in airtight houses. And those who don't believe in airtight houses are typically those who really don't think building science is very valuable. In the blog post, author Allison Bayliss says, quote, "The builder's answer to this question can tell you a lot. If they tell you a house needs to breathe, you probably don't need to waste any more time with them. Save your time to find a builder who appreciates the importance of an airtight building enclosure." End quote. You'll not only want a builder who believes in building a tight house, you'll also want him to agree to a blower door test. That blower door test measures the airtightness of a house, and it should be performed by an independent home energy rater. Question number 2. What's your preferred water-resistant barrier? Most experts agree that controlling water is one of the biggest challenges in home building, and failure to control water can lead to long-term structural damage. Think twice about choosing a builder who says he uses only a perforated plastic house wrap. At minimum, a spun-bonded polyolefin house wrap should be used, something like DuPont's Tyvek house wrap. Ideally, though, you want a builder who uses a non-house wrap water-resistant barrier, something like liquid-applied membranes or peel-and-stick membranes, or Hubbard's zip system. The zip system is that green-colored sheathing system that you may have seen in new construction in your area. To learn more about Hubbard's zip system, take a listen to episode 46 called Save Money, Energy, and Time by Building a Tight House Using the Zip System. I'll link to it in the show notes. Here's question number 3. How do you handle penetrations in the building enclosure after the water-resistant barrier has been installed? Okay, so when building a house, wires, channels, pipes, and vents have to enter and exit the main structure of the house when they're installed. And as a result, the water-resistant barrier that's been applied to the house, whether that's a house wrap or the zip system, that water-resistant barrier has to be punctured and penetrated so those pipes, channels, and wires can be properly placed. To keep water from entering through those penetration points need to be flashed properly. Flashing is simply a thin sheet of material that's placed in and on openings to prevent water from coming through. Good builders have a plan for flashing. They plan for flashing before penetrations are made. Question number 4. How do you ensure good installation of quality insulation? After insulation has been installed in a new house, a home energy rater should judge how well the insulation is installed by using a grading system. There are 3 grades, grades 1, 2, and 3. Grade 1 is the best. A grade 1 insulation job means that the insulation is installed according to the manufacturer's instructions. It completely fills the cavity, and it's been installed around electrical boxes, wires, and pipes, and it should not be compressed. Grade 2 is second best. The grade 2 insulation job will have some imperfections, such as gaps around wiring, electrical outlets, and plumbing, and maybe some incomplete spots. Grade 3 is the lowest grade. A grade 3 insulation job will have substantial gaps and voids. You're looking for someone who strives for grade 1 quality insulation. According to EnergyVanguard.com, a good answer to that question is, quote, "We insist on grade 1 insulation quality of all insulation. We make sure all cavities are filled completely with as little compression as possible. We hire a third-party inspector to make sure it's done right." End quote. Question number 5. How are the heating and cooling systems designed? What you don't want to hear to this question is that they go by a rule of thumb of 1 ton of air conditioning for every 400 to 500 square feet of living space. That's not the right answer. Ideally, the builder will mention something about a manual J calculation, which is the name of the calculation used to properly size the HVAC system for a home. You can learn more about the manual J calculation in episode 12 called Energy Efficiency, Designing, Inspecting, and Testing for It, Part 2. The builder doesn't need to be an expert in HVAC design, but he should know an expert and be willing to defer to that expert's opinion. The very best answer would be for the builder to say that he uses an independent HVAC designer or a home energy rater to design the HVAC system according to the manual J calculation. Question number 6. Do you have a preference for duct location? You should be listening for the words, ducts should go in a conditioned space. A conditioned space is a space that's insulated and often heated and cooled either directly or indirectly. Conditioning a space makes the temperature more comfortable. The livable areas of our homes are conditioned. Spaces like the attic and crawl space are typically unconditioned. It's okay if a builder decides to place ducts in an attic or crawl space as long as he conditions those spaces first. The bottom line is, wherever the ducts go, the space should be conditioned. Number 7. Do you normally install whole house mechanical ventilation systems? If his answer to question number 1 was that he believes in building an airtight house, which is the answer you want him to give, then he should also believe in whole house mechanical ventilation. That's the best way to get stale air out and fresh air into a tight house. Number 8, have you used third-party inspectors or had your homes certified in voluntary programs like Energy Star? If your prospective builder has used third-party inspectors like home energy raters or built houses for programs like Energy Star, LEED, or Passive House, they typically are more experienced and more open to utilizing building science in the design and construction of their homes. It's not a guarantee that they'll build a quality house, but EnergyVanguard.com says at least they'll be familiar with checklists and have good installation practices. Number 9, would you be willing to have a design review with the critical trades? All right, you're looking for a builder who is willing to have at least one meeting with the architect or designer and all the major subcontractors before you break ground. Getting the architect, the builder, the HVAC contractor, the plumber, the electrician, and the insulation contractor together to go over the plans before you start building will help the entire construction process go more smoothly. They'll be able to identify and solve many problems on paper instead of in the field. They'll often save time and money and eliminate stress. During that design review meeting, you or the builder can also ask the subs if they can suggest any changes to the house plan that will save money or time without sacrificing quality. Remember, your potential builder doesn't necessarily need to know the exact answers to all those questions, but he should be willing to consult with experts who do know the answers. If you're going to act as your own builder, you'll probably want to pose those questions to your insulation and HVAC subcontractors, and have a home energy rating company confirm that your insulation and HVAC systems have been properly installed. EnergyVanguard.com suggests that what you're looking for is a builder you can work with, someone who is at least open to the idea of putting extra time and attention into the building enclosure and mechanical systems. The questions above should give you a good picture of which ones might be able to do a good job in building your dream home. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you learned as much as I did. If you haven't visited our Facebook page, stop by and like the page. You'll see some of my favorite things for new homes. If you're listening on iTunes, just tap the cover art and you'll see a link to ByHiU's Facebook page. Thanks for joining me today. Come back next week for another episode of Build Your House Yourself University by ByHiU. Please remember that the purpose of this podcast is simply to educate and inform. It's not a substitute for professional advice. The information that you hear is based only on the opinions, research, and experiences of my guests and myself. That information might be incomplete, it's subject to change, and it may not apply to your project. In addition, building codes and requirements vary from region to region, so always consult a professional about specific recommendations for your home.